Hey everybody, just wanted to share this new app that I've been building. I call it Chat with Clips. The idea for this is to be able to synthesize and be able to ask questions to some of your favorite YouTube creators. The idea came about when I would listen to a daily podcast and certain topics would come up from weeks and weeks ago, and I wanted to revisit those and inform myself of the information. However, with how video is currently structured, it's very difficult to search, very difficult to ask questions. Oftentimes, you end up spending hours and hours trying to get close and just spend a lot of time. So what I wanted to do is solve that by using generative AI to be able to answer questions for you based on the videos that are there, as well as give you the sources for the information. I'll go through some of the examples of some of the use cases that I've found, and then go over some of the creators that we've chosen to support, at least early on. And so a lot of these kind of came from friends and family that have been wanting to share some of their YouTube usage. And these are kind of the ones. The idea for this is to try to get people to use this, and so I've chosen to support these. But I'm open to anybody and anything that might be available. So please let me know if there's anything you'd like to see. I'll start with the first one. The first one that I think is really cool. You have a creator here called Anders Ericsson. He's an awesome bartender that shares his recipes, different drinks. And so for this, what would you like to ask Anders Ericsson? Here's something simple. How do I make a mojito? And so because he is a bartender, this question makes a lot of sense, and we can get a really good sense of what his response is. So I'll go ahead and move my little face here. And so one of the things that this does is it goes through and gives you the answers, gives you the answer to the question in a simple text format. So it just goes through and just gives you a summary response based on the sources. And so this in itself is great. It synthesizes, answers your question. However, if you wanted to do research yourself, then what we could do is you go through, click on
or African origins.
One of these links.
But the first recipes we see in print are in the late 1920s and early 1930s, which included soda water and ice. And this is really the mojito we have today. Now that the history's out of the way, all this nonsense about pirates, let's make the mojito. I'm gonna show you
And so just for that little clip, you see that in just a fraction of a second, we're able to search through and find that information about the mojito. And just to kind of demonstrate the kind of data that we're working with, I'll go through and open this in a new link and show you that he has 219 videos. Each one is about 10 to 15 minutes long. So we're looking at about maybe 2,000 to 3,000 minutes of content that we're searching immediately. And so this gives you the information right away. Let's go through and try another example. And so another one, I mentioned the daily podcast. This is the one. And so there's a daily business podcast. Every day they talk about different topics. And say you wanted to revisit the right to disconnect that's going on in Europe. And so we'll go through. It's pretty generic, but what this goes through now is it goes through and gives you a summary of what this is. This right to disconnect is a concept that is gaining traction globally in France, Germany, Italy, etc. And so it tells you what it is, the legal protection. So that is very useful if that's as much information as you need. But again, the real value for this is
France, Germany, Italy, Belgium have all instituted laws over the past few years that make it illegal for your bosses to call you after work hours. Kenya also did it, and Australia is just riding this wave a little bit. I have no idea whether it's gonna wind up on our shores. I heavily doubt it based on our workaholic culture. But yeah, it's overall, there's been this right to disconnect.
And so in that moment, he mentions the right to disconnect, and so it just shows that this was able to find that reference correctly. And so if you're doing research on this as a reporter, as a student, then you could really get that information. The other use case that I've really tried to lean into is that of the educator. So you, from the educator's point of view, students trying to access that information. So one of the YouTube channels that I follow, especially if I want some technical content, is AWS developers. And so the specific use case that someone was asking me is how they use custom labels in AWS recognition. And so they've been going through some tutorials. Oftentimes the tutorials are out of date. The ones they provide are usually very simple, but oftentimes you'd rather have, if you could listen to a talk by someone that's actually used it, this could be of a lot of value to you. So we'll go through and ask it the question, how do I set up custom labels for AWS recognition, which is a OCR, optical computer vision software. And so I'll go through and ask it the question. And so here it goes through a step-by-step process of how to set it up. And so then here again, like the real game changer, the real killer feature of this is that it goes through and just gives you the correct videos that directly address it. So in this case, just for context, there's 10 videos on here that I've chosen to return. It keeps the context window of the generative AI relatively light, keeps it fast, and prevents us from putting too much data in there and not being able to get it processed correctly. We can experiment with setting things up a little bit differently based on user feedback. But let's go through and check this example out as well.
As a fully managed AWS service, without having to build their own machine learning model algorithms from the ground up. We do the heavy lifting for you. So what exactly is Amazon Recognition Custom Labels?
And so from there, you would see that you continue on, and here having the video title that's shown, you can see that because this has 9 of the 10 hits, this is relatively a really good source for this. And so one of the things that I'll try to point out, I'll see here. So the awesome thing about this is that we're trying to give a voice to some of these videos and some of these creators that might not have had a voice otherwise. And so this year we have 4.5 thousand views from 2 years ago. And so based on some of the other videos and some of the other content that AWS developers produces, this could very easily be lost in the general ether of videos of machine learning, of other recognition topics. And so what this does is this is really just kind of the meritocracy of having the best video for your specific use case pop up. Kind of based on determination of the generative AI, we recognize that the video snippets that have come up from these videos directly match most closely to your question. And so really just accelerating your knowledge, so you just go right away to the content that you need without spending a ton of time doing things that aren't necessarily directly related to what you're talking about. So yeah, I guess that's a couple of the features. Sometimes YouTube is pretty heavy with regards to screen, so a couple of the little features that I have, you can clear it out if you want. If you pop it open and realize it's taking too long or want to see it on a different screen, you simply click it again and it comes up there. Let's see what else I can do. Also supports mobile. You can see that it's still very clean, very easy to use. So yeah, I guess a couple key ideas for this, because what we're doing is we're taking the transcript and adding it to the generative AI. It doesn't always have the context of it being different videos. From its point of view, it has all this information and it's using that to be able to inform its decision. And so if you try to ask it more time-sensitive data about, if this what topics did you cover in 2023? Well, unless it was discussed in the conversation, you might not have the context for it. Another thing is that if there's two or more people talking in a conversation, the speech to text doesn't always detect who mentioned what. It doesn't recognize the voice differences. And so it's not as easy to know who is who. And then if you try to ask it a question that isn't within the realm of what you were trying of that person, then you might get some gibberish. For example, if you ask Joe Rogan how to make an omelet, while something might come up that got mentioned in a conversation, odds are you're not going to get as good of results as if you would with asking a chef. And so slowly we're trying to build this up. As we start building this out and start getting more product market fit and market validation and more creators that cover more and more use cases, eventually the vision would be that you can ask it a question. We'll go through and determine which creator best matches the question that you're trying to ask, and then set that up for you. However, right now it's still kind of early days, still a little bit of testing, so there is a little bit of required knowledge to know which of these creators is actually the one that you care about and want to ask. And so another use case that I think is really valuable is if you are a small creator that want to market yourself, what you could do, if you know that people are really talking about a certain topic and you want to be able to create short form content that it directly addresses that, then you would be able to instantly know where to make your clips so that you get the most engagement. So for example, if online people are really asking, how can I set up serverless with Java? Then we'll go ahead and ask the question. And so once it comes up, though, you do get to the questions on there, questions answered. But as well, if you really wanted to create short form content, then what you could do is you could create little clips based on these timestamps. And so if there was a particularly good little snippet that you think would be valuable for the user, then this is what you could do to be able to drive engagement and capture the audience's attention within the 30-second time frame or however long. And so, yep, I think a lot of different use cases, and I think something like this is really going to change how we view videos, and I think it really is the future. And long gone are the days when you're staring at a whole 20-hour library of content, not knowing where to start, or if you're covering information that doesn't make sense. With this, you can directly ask questions to your creator, get answers that are informed by their expertise, and really accelerate your learning and knowledge acquisition. So hopefully this demo helps to show value, the workflow, some of the limitations, some of the strengths of the application, and I hope you check it out. Again, chatwithclips.com. Please send me an email or reach out if you would like certain other creators supported with any other comments, suggestions, tips. I'm very open to these, and I'm committed to making this as good of an experience as possible. So thank you, and I hope you check it out.